With rookie minicamp officially in the books, the Washington Commanders and their fans finally get a look at some shiny new toys in Ashburn, and we are here to talk about the rookies. We're also here to talk about what we got right about the draft. Minicamp, like I just said, were our bold predictions for the draft correct? We're also going to talk linebacker and the glaring need we have at the position and more. Welcome to the Sidelines Washington Podcast, brought to you by the Sidelines Sports Network, where we take command for the SSN. I'm your host and head of NFL operations here, Parker Hamlett. If you're listening to us in the audio room, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, whatever have you, make sure you guys follow us, give us a rating and a review, subscribe. If you're watching us on YouTube, like it says in the intro, guys, subscribe and turn on notifications so you're notified when the latest drops. We got some YouTube content as well coming up here within this week. And joining me today is a very special guest. He is a host of one of the best damn Commanders content just distributors out there. He's a very good friend. Big Douglas, guys. Missed him at the draft party. I was telling that before we went on. But some of the access we got at the draft party is just a normal episode of the Big Douglas show. So, I mean, you got Santana Moss, Chris Baker. I mean, I got a celebrity on the show here, guys. You guys even got Marlin on the mix. How have you been, man? Long time no pod.
I've been good, man. I was pissed. I got an injury, and Doc told me I couldn't go up for that draft thing because I was ready. I have a bags packed. I was excited. They had a table set for me, so super excited. And listen, Swaggy was who life comes at you fast, right? Things you could never predict. I mean, you were here down at the beach with me last year. If I had any idea that, Swaggy'd be my texting buddy and he'd be on the show every Monday, I would have told you that, we'd have had a couple too many, which we did. But it's been fun, man. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I'm not big in the live streaming game, man, but I always know to tune into the Big Douglas show. So all Silence Washington's listeners, you know how I feel about Douglas. Check out the Big Douglas show. What days of the week are you guys on now officially?
Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Didn't want to mess that up. Don't want to give them any false information, obviously. Get some huge, big-time guests on the show. You guys are always really consistent. You're definitely a lot more down to earth. People definitely like gravitating towards you, Douglas, and a lot of us were really excited to see you at the draft party. It's been a while since I'd seen you. Plan on coming to the beach again this summer, of course, but I got you on the show today, man, because we're going to do what we do best, and that's talk ball, talk everything with the Washington Commanders. Obviously, a lot of great insight on your show with some former Washington Commanders, Redskins, whatever have you. But, draft season officially in the rearview now, obviously. It's been a week now since the rookies prepared at Minicamp. This episode will drop probably a week after officially. But before we get into all of that, I want to know your official thoughts. Like I said, now that the draft's in the rear view, for me, I gave the draft class a B. Our last episode Zach Selby gave the report card. We got a B on it. Some people say, who cares? Their draft grades, they took who they took. We can't even grade this stuff. It's a little too early for that, but we gave it a B. I thought it was definitely a lot better than last year's draft class, even though I feel like last year's draft class is going to have some solid contributors. I think Sam Cosmi is going to be a big name for the Washington Commanders offensive line this year. But, I mean, for me, I feel like the team addressed some needs and got some much-needed depth at a lot of positions. You got a possible future starter in Sam Howell at the quarterback position. That's obviously my guy. Zach told me to kind of pump the brakes on it, but I do see a lot of good things in Sam Howell. So let's kind of quickly go pick by pick here. How did Big Douglas feel about the 2022 Commanders draft class?
I liked it. I'm not in on the grades. I find it hard to put predictions and rankings on guys and not put pads on it at NFL level. I liked the trade back. It's interesting. So here's what I've been saying. Last year, team got up to bat. Let's go to baseball for a second. The team got up to bat, and every ball they were trying to smash home runs, right? Like if Jamin Davis is everything you hope he is, he's a home run. If Sam Cosmi is everything you hope he is, that's a home run. And last year they told you, we didn't think Sam Cosmi would be in the second, so we were stoked to have him. We didn't think Diami Brown would be there in the third or fourth round, whatever it was, and they got him. They didn't think Jay Juice would be there. So all super high upside guys, super high ceilings, but super low floors, if you will. Home run time. This year, they got up to bat and just peppered the ball around, right? Single here, double here. I mean, that's what you're hoping for, right? A couple singles and doubles. That's what I think they did. And it shows you, I think, at least what they think the roster looks like. They need somebody to come in and play right now. So I liked it in its totality. They set out to do what the fans wanted. Fans wanted a wide receiver and a trade back. They got a wide receiver and a trade back. So whether you liked the receiver they took or the picks they took with the trade back, that's part of the business, the risky business of a trade back, right? So I don't know. I think they kind of did everything we thought they'd do. Everybody thought that, you'd have to get another D tackle. They did that. Was he picked 12 spots too early? I don't know. But if you really wanted him, he wasn't going to be there 42 spots later. Right? So I think they knew what they needed. They filled holes. We'll get there, I'm assuming. But like Phil Mathis, people are upset, right? Okay. So you could have had the Penguin for $2 million. Is that what the Bills paid him?
Yeah.
But that's not, they didn't need that. That's not the D tackle they wanted. They wanted this guy that is going to protect the B gap and sit and just eat up and absorb blockers. And that's what he does. Not to mention he got 9 sacks last year on the humble by doing that. So
it's funny you say that.
But I think they set out with a plan. And I think they executed it well.
And all of this entire draft felt extremely calculated by the Commanders. Whereas last year it was in the 19th overall selection. You take Jamin Davis, and we have our interview with London Fletcher planned in this episode. I asked him a couple questions about Jamin, and we're certainly going to get into that. Excited for the Sidelines Washington listeners to hear that. But linebacker, a lot of people were talking about how we got to take Troy Anderson, we got to take Chad Moon, we got to take Christian Harris, and that never came to fruition. And that's what we're going to get into when we talk about what we got right about this draft. But as far as, what we were just discussing, you talk about the potential about a lot of these guys. They overshot. Samuel Cosme played well above expectations last year. And, we talk about draft grades. Some of these guys end up being better than you thought that they ever could be. I always felt like Jamin Davis was a developmental kind of guy. Rio was on the show last week. He said high floor, low ceiling type of guys. And that's how I felt like this draft class was, but it wasn't a bad thing. You obviously go for experience at a lot of these different positions. And, Phil Mathis, you can say whatever you want to about him, but this is a guy that Nick Saban said he was a permanent captain, I think was a term, was used at Alabama. So this is a guy who's beloved by the community. He can't make all the sexy plays at defensive tackle. You let Ioannidis walk. You let Tim Settle walk. I wasn't crazy about letting Settle walk. I could certainly understand Ioannidis. There was some discrepancies with the coaching staff. I can understand that. With Settle, it was a little bit different for me, Doug, because, you had Sam Mills and everybody saying, we could have utilized this guy a lot better down the stretch. Then you let him go, kind of a fan favorite kind of guy, too. We talked about him having a lot of value outside the market. Turns out he goes out to Buffalo. Going to have a huge role over there. I'm happy for him. But I feel like Phil Mathis is going to have just as big a role here with the Washington Commanders. And no matter where we all think he should have went, according to the big board, it's a reach. But if he's high on their board, they are taking him, following that Alabama bloodline type of theme. You look at picks like Percy Butler as well. It seems like there's a grand scheme with what Ron Rivera and them all want from these prospects, but they certainly want experienced ones. And, I'm pretty impressed with all the guys that I've heard from so far, all the guys I've seen, rookie minicamp, they're all carry themselves very well, especially Dotson. So, like I said, let's go to what we got right with this draft class. We'll do 3 specifically, the things we did hit on. One of my bold predictions was that that no linebacker will be selected in this entire draft class. Of course, 3 were added via free agency. You got Jack Del Rio saying, do not sleep on Cole Holcomb. I didn't see them taking one in the second round. They had no private workouts. They had some combine stuff with Troy Anderson, Christian Harris, Chad Moon, 3 guys I just mentioned. A lot of people mad that they passed up on the Kobe Dean. I'm sure you're one of them. But, the medical stuff certainly just didn't add up, and the Eagles are certainly taking a calculated risk there, depending on who you asked. I thought Jamin Davis was a big reason they weren't going to take any of these guys in any of these rounds. I think they still think there's a lot of work left to do with 52. You had Jack Del Rio coming out outright basically saying, last year was a rough year for Jamin Davis. It's not what everybody expected. Some people could say that's due to his
role. Whose fault was that?
What'd you say?
Whose fault was that?
Exactly. And that's the conversation that they need to be had.
And meanwhile, Jack never put him in a great position to succeed. We know he didn't have a good year, Jack. You didn't play him right.
Yeah, and I feel like Jack kind of seems like, he wants to say that, last year was an anomaly, or he acts like last year was an anomaly, but it seems to be like a different perspective than what Rivera looks at it as. Like, he kind of looks like he doesn't think much of the defensive struggles last year, but a lot of that really is on JDR, and I'm glad you brought that up. But, the Commanders do have 2 linebackers on the field for the majority of the snaps. You've seen a lot of statistics going around. They like their room, and I said that pre-draft. How do you feel about the Washington Commanders not addressing the linebacker position in this draft?
It's interesting because, every Wednesday leading up to the draft, we did the scouting notebook over at the show, and we had all kind of guys that this is what they do for a living. And I asked them all the time, like, what do you think of the first round? What do you think of the second round? And it was always like some iteration of receiver and linebacker, or receiver and safety, or safety and receiver, like however you wanted that to go. And so I really had just said to myself, yeah, right. I mean, guys like Jim Nagy, who run the Super Bowl, told us, like, yeah, there'll be plenty of options for linebacker in the second round. I don't know why Washington wouldn't do that. To your point, they didn't do that because they could care less about 3 linebackers. I think 12% of snaps last year, they had 3 linebackers on the field. So, of course, we just assumed, we've got this 43 vision in our mind, and that ain't it. You know what I mean? Like, they're not running a 34. They're not running a 43. They're not running a bear over. I mean, I love these guys that come out with all the formations. They told you they're going to run a buffalo package. How about that? 65% of the time they're going to be in a buffalo. And coach wants to make sure it's not buffalo nickel, just a buffalo. And they can move that guy wherever they want to. Still have no idea what the buffalo is.
100%. And, I feel like last year it really was a big case of Jack Del Rio not utilizing these guys all to what their best capabilities are. I mean, Jamin Davis was kind of depicted as an outside guy. They said that he's going to be middle linebacker. I thought that middle linebacker is where he was going to be used at. And, London Fletcher talks about it a little bit later in this episode, but, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with being a Mike. And 1 year college football experience for Jamin Davis as well. So, I mean, he's kind of the opposite of everything that they went for with this draft class, which is experience. So Cole Holcomb clearly has shown that he can handle the responsibility of being that field general for the defense. And like JDR said, this is a huge leap year for him. And I was impressed with him all year. And I feel good about him being the Mike of this defense, but it still doesn't really downplay kind of the whiff of a guy like taking Jamin Davis at 19 and not really knowing what to do with him. And, no matter what people want to say, I love Coach Rivera. I think Coach Rivera is good for this organization, and it's going to look a hell of a lot better when he's gone than it ever did when he first came in the door. But, with him being a former linebacker himself, Doug, and, it's kind of a blow at, his pedigree a little bit, him and Jack Del Rio's pedigree, when they don't really know what to do with a guy like Jamin Davis. I mean, these are former linebackers themselves. You can't not blame the fan base for rolling their eyes and wanting to know what was going on with 52. I mean, the athletic profile is there. And I mean, it is a significant drop off in talent. I mean, they're referencing Khaleke Hudson as a quote unquote veteran linebacker in this unit now. This is a unit without John Bostic as well. And, let's just kind of take a look at the free agency market here for a second. You've got Dante Hightower, Joe Sherbert, Danny Trevathan, Nick Kwiatkowski. He's getting a lot of interest from a lot of teams. AJ Klein, of course, I think spent 6 seasons with Rivera in Carolina. Do you think that the Commanders should take a solid look at one of these guys? Obviously, Ron Rivera was asked about it. He says that he feels like they need that veteran present at the linebacker position. Who would be your choice?
It feels like Danny Trevathan is a guy that fits that role. Like, of the list that you just read, like, that's the name that sticks out to me. He sounds like a Rivera guy. I mean, remember, guys like Tim Settle are out because I don't think they were Rivera guys. You know what I mean? Like, that's not to disparage Tim Settle. I think he's probably a really nice guy and a lot of fun, and I like to hang with him. But I don't think that silliness that, like, exudes is something that Rivera maybe was into. Probably Jack wasn't into it either. So unless we get, like, without the access, it's hard to know, right? Like, 'cause sometimes it's personalities. We assume it's X's and O's and where you fit on the field, but some of these guys are ready to run out of there as soon as practice is over to go play, Call of Duty. And I don't think Coach.
That's a really good point. I said last week when when we were talking on the show that, when Mayhew said that no one knows what's going on in our building better than us, he's right. We don't know. We don't have that access. We don't know what guys get along with what guys aren't buying in. I just was not buying into anything. And and you have Tim Settlewalk. A lot of people upset about it. Obviously, he's not like a top tier defensive tackle in the NFL, but this is still a guy that, if utilized properly, is a valuable piece of this rotation. So, Mathis obviously fills the void that those two guys left. But at the end of the day, like you said, we're not in that locker room. We don't know who's buying in and who's not buying in. And I don't know about you, but if it's another rough outing for Jack Del Rio's defense here in 2022, which we certainly hope that's not the case, I think he's the first guy out the door. I know I sound really knee-jerky, but with 2020 kind of being an anomaly, like Coach Rivera said that it is, you got some high-impact play out of that defense. But last year it was rough. And you saw Dan Orlovsky on Twitter today. If this Commanders defense can play great, it'll outdo any type of negative ramifications.
We didn't need Dan to tell us that, did we?
No, we didn't. No, we did not. And mind you, 2020, there was obviously some of those wins were against some very bad teams, but this is a Washington Commanders team in 2022 that has a much easier schedule. Obviously, we got the schedule release coming up, but a much easier schedule, at least in my opinion. And, AJ Klein, I was never going to say Will Compton linebacker, by the way, everybody. I know everybody was expecting it, but that's not going to happen. For me, it's AJ Klein. I feel like that's a great kind of reunion for Rivera. I feel like he brings that veteran presence. I feel like he's kind of a journeyman kind of guy. He's not someone that, is going to be the anchor of this defense for the next 5, 10, maybe even 2 years. And he comes in and kind of helps these young guys out. I see him and Holcomb meshing pretty well. But time will tell. Of course, the Commander's not really connected to any of these guys as of right now. And just to set the record straight on these, Carolina Panthers connections, James Bradbury, of course, released by the New York Giants. Kind of foresaw that happening. It looked like him and Rivera were a match made in heaven here in DC free agency last year. Ended up not being the case. I don't see a $10 million contract happening with this front office. I don't think they're going to get the deal done. I think it would have to be a fourth of that in order for him to become a Commander. Do you foresee James Bradbury wearing burgundy and gold anytime soon?
No.
Just doesn't make sense. The optics, logistics, none of it just makes sense to me, Can
he play nickel corner? Because you've already paid because you've paid two outside corners over $10 million already. And frankly, if Rivera wanted Bradbury, he could have done that last year instead of William Jackson III. Or if it wasn't last year, it was 2 years ago, and he could have done that instead of Fuller. So whichever one it was, I'm old and I don't remember as well as I used to. But point still remains: Rivera already had a chance to get him on the roster and passed. I don't think they can afford him, and I think he's redundant. He's got to play outside, as far as I know. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. All we've got is outside corners.
Yeah.
Fuller did not play well in the nickel role last year, even though everybody thought he would. William Jackson can't go inside. And for all the people that keep telling me that Benjamin St. Juste plays well in the nickel, okay.
It's funny you say that about Fuller as well. Of course, we got the London Fletcher interview this week. The Kindle episode is going to be upcoming in the next couple of weeks. I told him directly to his face.
Happy for him to get up in the booth.
100%. And, for me, with Fuller, I'm sitting here and I told him, I was like, once you kind of got kicked to the outside, PFF had you ranked the top 10, 15 corner. And he looks down at my piece of paper like, is that true? It's almost like he didn't even believe it, And once he moved to the outside, you saw a lot better things out of Kendall Fuller. And that's a nice little nugget from our interview, kind of a spoiler of what's to come ahead in the weeks here on Sidelines Washington Podcast. But of course, got to tell the Sidelines Washington listeners real quick about our sponsor, Manscaped. If you want to take command of your balls, look no further, because today I'm going to tell you about Manscaped. They have the best below-the-waist grooming tools for your family jewels. Manscaped is supported by 4 million men worldwide, and that is approximately 8 million balls. Join the Manscaped family today by picking up the Performance Package 4.0. It's got a bunch of amazing items in it. The Lawnmower 4.0, which has skin-safe technology with a ceramic blade that avoids any nicks or snags. Got a 400K light on it as well, rechargeable dock, everything you can ask for. It's also waterproof. Of course, you got the nose and ears trimmer as well. That also comes in Performance Package 4.0. A lot of the same technology as the Lawnmower 4.0 as well comes inside of the Performance Package 4.0. Of course, you get a couple exclusive Manscaped items as well. You get the Crop Reviver, which is a ball toner for your sack, and the Crop Preserver, which is anti-chafing ball deodorant for your sack as well. These are two great items that make me feel fresh, make me feel revitalized. A couple other items you get inside of it as well is the Manscaped Boxer Briefs. I mean, they're anti-chafing, they're silky, they're smooth, snug in all the right places. I'm wearing them right now. They are extremely comfortable. In our initial trial run with Manscaped, that was one of the items that us Sidelines Washington listeners were constantly picking up. I'm glad you guys enjoy them as much as I do. And a lot of these products, I've stood by them before I was ever even on paper with Manscaped. And of course, you get the travel bag as well in the Performance Package 4.0. So you get all these free, amazing items for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com using promo code SSNWFT. That is 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com today using our special offer and our special promo code. Take advantage of our deal today, Sidelines Washington listeners. Your balls will thank you. So let's keep moving through our bold predictions, and kind of how they all played out throughout the draft, Doug. I said that the team was going to go wide receiver, running back, safety, and offensive line. I almost had it in order. I was barely off by one. Obviously, that was before trades came into play as well. Obviously, that played a big factor. Then I pick up Cole Turner, a couple other guys as well. Is there a position outside of linebacker that you feel like the Commanders should have addressed and they just didn't in this draft?
I don't think so.
I think they covered everything pretty well.
I thought maybe there was a chance they'd draft corner at some point, but the board didn't fall that way in the first round. So I don't know. They like the safety that they drafted. They think he can get into the Buffalo. If not, he's one of the premier special teams aces. So again, look at rounds 1 through 4. All of them should hit the field immediately in some capacity.
100, and that's a great way to put it. And you got Percy
I don't
Butler.
know how many teams are going to be able to say that this year.
And the fact that there was even hesitancy with you there with answering the question shows really how good of a draft all around this was for the Commanders. I feel like most years we're able to say, oh, well, they should have went out and addressed this position. It's really hard to look at this draft class and be like, oh, well, it wasn't what position was taken or what guy was taken. It was just where they were taken at. They clearly had a plan.
And in 3 years, you'll never remember what pick they were taken with. You'll never remember, if those guys succeed, you'll never remember if they were taken 12 spots too early or 8 spots too early. You'll never remember that. You'll only realize that they're playing really good right now. 60% of defensive snaps last year for Ioannidis. 60%. So the kid's coming in right away, getting bulk share. I say this all the time. 250 snaps for carries for Antonio Gibson last year. 70 carries for Patterson last year. 40 carries for McKissick last year. And Gibson's been hurt both years. God bless him. He starts all the time. I say this all the time on my show, comparing him to Morgan Moses, who was hurt all the time, but posted every week. That's Gibson, man. Turf toe the first season, missed a couple games. Fractured shin last year. I remember asking Swaggy, is this thing going to get better as the year goes on? He says, well, I don't know, Doug. If you had a fractured shin and somebody was kicking it 5 times, 10 times a game every week, you think that's going to get better? No, probably not. So there's a world where Brian Robinson can get 100 snaps, 100 carries next year.
And who knows what happens with Antonio Gibson, late in December, and you need that bruiser back. Brian Robinson Jr. definitely a more traditional back. That's the more, under center alignment is normally what he's used to. If he's going to come in and be the Peyton Barber, not saying I'm going to even compare those two to each other, but
let's not do that either.
People talking about the Buffalo nickel catch radius, dismiss that. Let's dismiss the Peyton Barber comps as well. But if you need, the I formation, smash mouth running back, I feel like Robinson's going to take a lot of carries away from a guy like Jared Patterson. Hopefully from Antonio Gibson as well. I never felt like
I think you'll get 50 from Gibson and all of Patterson's. I'm telling you, watch Brian Robinson get 100 carries this year.
I can totally see it. And that's a big reason I had to come
all
on the show
the goal line.
I wanted you to put some numbers on it because we're going to come back to this.
Football guy, sell, which I did too late. I can't cash in. Kept him too long. Brian Robinson on the goal line, probably good for 4 touchdowns this year.
I could totally see that. That's completely plausible. But I think what's going to make people roll their eyes is, we're sitting here talking about him having a huge role in this backfield. It's really not a crazy conversation. I mean, Antonio Gibson's numbers last year were great, but I mean, you take out that New York Giants games, that's under 1,000 yards. And I mean, he's constantly dealing with injuries, still playing on a rookie contract. I mean, we all know the shelf life of an NFL running back. That's not something we should even have to explain to listeners, but at the end of the day, these guys, Rivera talking about that Stewart-Williams combination in Carolina. I mean, that's what he sees when he looks at this, obviously. So I think he knows that, both these guys have their strengths and he's going to utilize them to the best of their ability. And then you add J.D. McKissick as that possible third option with all the value that he has that you and I have talked about constantly. I think this running back room comes out of this really pretty. I think the same thing about the wide receiver position with Dotson as well. And I certainly feel that way about the quarterback position now that Sam Howell has been added to the mix as well. Obviously, I see your reaction. I gush over Sam Howell. I told the Sidelines Washington listeners to look out for him. I said that he was on their radar. I foresaw this. I don't know. It always felt like destiny to me. Carolina kid, great leader. After this last year where his talent at UNC certainly let him down, Sam Howell slimmed down a lot of people's draft boards. I put him on my top 5 rankings at quarterback. I wanted to put him higher, honestly, but I can't think it with my heart constantly. But I mean, he looked good at Ashburn. Zach told me to pump the brakes. Your reaction says everything as well. I see franchise quarterback potential out of this guy. I think he's got the arm. I think he's got the athletic ability. I think if you put talent around him and plus the value with him taking the slide the way he did, I really don't. I think that the plan was always if he's there, we'll take him. Him going down to the 5th. You saw how this quarterback draft class was. And I got to give you credit, Doug. You told me this league was not high on this quarterback draft class. And let me tell you, that draft certainly indicated that. Matt Corral, Malik Willis, all these guys took a huge slide. How do you feel about Sam Howell's stock? Is this a guy we're going to be talking about in a couple of years? Or like I said last week, could he find his way on the field this year if all things go astray?
Well, for him to find his way on the field means that Carson Wentz gets hurt or completely sucks. And I know you think that's a realistic possibility, but it also means that Taylor Heineke got hurt. Because I don't see a way that this year, at least for this year, that Taylor Heineke in the backup, they've already paid him. And yes, it is a tiny little bit of scrap of money, but it's on the books and they paid him. So why would you kick him out? I mean, I think the guys in the locker room like him, the coaching staff like him.
He beat the stigma as well of being the guy who can't play a whole season last year. I mean, COVID aside. So, I mean, he can play a full season.
Me, the guy they picked in the 5th round is like a Taylor Heineke with a bump up, right? Like, I mean, he's Taylor Heineke plus something. But listen, I think Sam Howell is fine. I think he's probably, like I said, I think he's like the Heineken heavy, But I don't see, like, 3 years is what Howell needs. And again, if Carson Wentz plays well, then you'll never see it. But we got to always remember, like, people poo-poo the backup quarterback position. It's important. If that guy can be a solid jump in the game, run it type quarterback for the next 4 years for you, that's fantastic. And how about this? If they make those trades all the way around, right, and Sam Howell goes in the 2nd round and Phil Mathis goes around later and Brian Robinson goes around later, everybody loves those picks. It's funny how they get sorted around, right? Like, instead, you get the same guys, same exact guys, just slotted differently, and people are like, But I'm telling you, it was Howell in the 2nd, everybody moves down. I mean, it was an A+ draft.
I said that. I said that to Zach last week. I said everybody who's mad about Phil Mathis in the 2nd. If you took Jordan Davis in the 1st round, oh my God, we would have never heard the end of it. I mean, you got to think the roles reversed. If that still doesn't satisfy the fan base, I mean, Jordan Davis is a great player. You're a Bulldogs guy. I mean, it would have been great value there. I think he's an awesome player. But still, I mean,
pissed all my dogs went to Philly.
Yep, because you have to be rooting against them twice a year. And I mean, I feel like the Sam Howell and Taylor Heineke comparison is a little harsh. I feel that way. I feel like Sam Howell definitely has a way better arm than Taylor Heineke. I think he can get the ball to his receivers a lot better. I can definitely understand the parallels with the mobility. I like athletic profile of Sam Howell a hell of a lot more like Taylor's. And I think that it would be
I like his arm better.
Yeah, and I feel like Carson is going to Carson. I think he's going to have great moments this year, but I feel like there's going to be a strong possibility he's going to be off the field very soon. I definitely don't think as fast as Ryan Fitzpatrick last year. But then you go to the situation of what if Taylor Heineke is playing and he's not making the plays, 17's not getting the ball like he should, and you're getting all these looks in practice of a guy like Sam Howell who can get him the ball. I mean, I really do feel like they're going to enter a territory where they feel like Taylor just can't get the ball to their playmakers. And I really feel like Sam Howell is a real possibility late in the season, of course, if Carson Wentz is injured. I mean, obviously, I'm a Commanders fan at heart, so Carson Wentz needs to play healthy and get us 11 wins. But
your scenario has them sucking next year, Parker.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Carson Wentz is
the only way Howell gets on the field is if the team is awful.
You saw the graphic. I mean, Carson Wentz is set up for success here. You got Dotson. Curtis Samuel possibly returning. Hopefully he will. Antonio Gibson. I mean,
they were a bad defense away from winning that game. Like this whole notion that Carson Wentz just like sucked the whole season and they weren't.
Okay, and that's another thing. I never said he sucked the whole season.
I mean, come on.
I feel like Pat McAfee.
We stand in line for that.
I feel like Pat McAfee said it best. Watching Carson Wentz is like you never know what you're going to get anytime the ball is in his hands. He has that big play ability, and I don't think anybody is disputing that. And like I said, the fan in me certainly wants him to succeed, but I feel like it's also unfair to not talk about previous cities, previous experiences, and of course, talk about the up of his game and talk about those crashing downs. But I will say that, anybody who says that Carson Wentz is a bad quarterback, that's not a fair assessment whatsoever, but certainly his last chance here in DC, I'd say at least. So
agreed.
Taking a look at rookie minicamp here though, in the big picture, little trip to Ashburn in the books. Got a couple of notes here. Sam Howell, Chris Paul, Cole Turner, Christian Holmes all officially signed their rookie contracts. Cole Turner got a hell of a rub by his coaching staff as well. Rivera says that, people will be surprised by his blocking ability. That's definitely not something I was impressed with when I watched his tape. I mean, I love the athletic profile here. Cole Turner's a big body in the red zone. We had Logan Thomas on a couple episodes ago. He says he's expected to come back week 1. But, I mean, we all know how Carson Wentz loves his tight ends, especially in the red zone. I feel like Cole Turner can end up being a really good player here with the Washington Commanders. I don't expect a big year 1 from him, though, either. What are you expecting from Cole Turner in 2022?
I like what I hear about Cole Turner. I'm honest when I tell you I have not studied the tape. I don't do a ton of studying of the tape. I invite guys onto the show who study the tape so that I don't have to. They seem to like him. Logan Paulson likes the undrafted free agent tight end that they got from Arizona State, I believe, Arizona State, Mexico State, one of those.
You're close enough.
He likes him better than the guy they signed. So I don't know. He's a tight end. I'll take his word for it. But I know that the team is excited about Cole. What I do know is that the undrafted free agent, 6'6", Cole 6'7", Logan 6'6". They're building a basketball team.
Definitely getting that size in the red zone. And, also the quarterback, Cole Kelly, huge guy himself. That's another undrafted free agent that they're certainly high on. I can see him making the practice squad just the way they're talking about him already.
Louisiana, right?
Yeah. And I mean, Cole Turner.
That's the guy. You're talking about Sam Howell. I like the kid Cole. That's a 5-year project.
Yes. I never saw Samus Reyes as even achievable. But I do see Cole Turner end up.
You know what I think that was? They had Pete Hainer was here, who was one of the premier tight end coaches. And I think he saw a guy that he was like, yes, please. And then he retired. And so I do think it'll be interesting to see how the current staff and Castillo like the progression, because that room is busy now.
Even without RSJ, because RSJ was a bigger loss.
I actually am a lot higher on Beats than I think a lot of other people are. So, I mean, that quickly became a very full tight end room.
Absolutely. And Hainer is a huge loss. I've never downplayed that here on the show. I feel like he was a great member of this coaching staff, and now he's out of the building. Castillo obviously was with Scott Turner and them when they did their private workout with Cole Turner and Carson Strong. So they like what they see out of him, and I feel like they're going to try to get some bang for their buck here. Bates plays into that as well, but definitely an open tight end room there with Logan Thomas coming back, no RSJ as well, and now no Pete Hainer. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out during camp, which is coming a lot faster than people think. And some post-draft signings, they picked up Turner and the Alex returner, kind of bringing that veteran experience that was definitely needed at guard and getting that, hopefully that kick returner role fixed. That, of course, number one left, Uno. We got a new Uno in town, though, Jahan Dotson, who's already carrying himself like a veteran. I thought it was a great story. Hear how Rivera told him, don't skip graduation, man.
Yes.
Dotson seems very locked in. I don't know about you, Doug, but it was easy to be underwhelmed by the pick because you had Olave in your face. James Williams was another guy that everybody thought that they were intrigued in. But everything I've seen of Dotson, I hadn't watched a lot of tape on him. He was a wide receiver 6, and I didn't think they were going to be in a position to take a wide receiver 6. I thought that the league wasn't as high on Olave as everybody thought that they were. Of course, things didn't fall like that. I think Dotson would be a Packer had we traded back again. I think we got great value. I think he's a little guy, but I think he can ball and he's got speed, and that guy goes up and gets it at the point of attack. I think they got a gamer with Dotson. What is your thoughts on him?
Well, you mentioned Santana Moss. He said that Jahan had the best route tree of anybody in the draft after he went back and looked at it. It's funny. Nobody was really looking at Jahan, right? So we have to go back now and take a look and see what it was that they saw. They saw a guy ready to play right away. They saw a guy that, how many drops did he have? I mean, Brian Robinson didn't fumble in college, right? Like not one, ever, all 4 years or 5 years, however long he stayed.
I think it was 5.
Dotson's this, do it?
I think it was 5. Yeah, I think you're right.
Right, and not a fumble. And I understand he wasn't playing much the first 3, but still.
545 carries too.
Man. He doesn't drop passes, and that's what they're looking for. So, I mean, the fact that he plays like he's 6'4", I mean, catch radius is something we're hearing nonstop now.
The new Buffalo nickel.
I say this all the time, and I firmly believe it. If the Packers take Dotson at 20, it's a home run, right? And everybody's like, look at the pick that the Packers made. It's a sneaky good pick, right? A sneaky good pick. We took him 4 spots earlier, and it's like, maybe they overdrafted him there. I don't know. I've got to go back. I got to go back and look at the tape, right? If the Packers or the Chiefs make the pick, it's like a home run. So
exactly, and I'm glad you said that. I feel like it's
and you didn't just get, not to cut you off, but you didn't just get Chris Olave, right? That's not what you traded Dotson for. You traded Dotson for what, Brian Robinson and Sam Howell, right?
Yep. And that's what people need to think is big picture. I mean, the goal of the draft is to get as much talent as humanly possible.
Well, and not to cut you off, can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
You know what this team is doing right now, which I love that they never do? They're being forward thinkers. Everybody says, don't give running backs a second contract. All right, AG's coming up on the end of his contract. Go draft a running back that you think can hold a full workload. The same thing with the D tackle. You're not going to pay Deron Payne. Let's find a deep tackle to fix it. So be glad that for once, because I've talked about this all the time, that they are always reactionary instead of being proactive. Thank goodness they're being proactive for one time and seeing what they got to do in the future. I mean, if they sign Antonio Gibson in 2 years to some big contract because they didn't rework the running back, then we'd be clowning them.
Yeah. I would be. Oh my God, I'd be ripping them apart. And I mean, this is what good football teams do. This is what good football organizations do. But obviously, we're just not used to that. And there are certain things that you can't put on a metric. There's certain things you can't grade. And those are the things that they like, those no bullshit kind of guys. And that's what Jahan Dotson certainly is. And Santana Moss, I'm sure Santana Moss didn't sit there and watch tape on this kid all off season. But I mean, like I said, he goes up and gets the ball. He is a threat. He plays big a lot, like you said. And Rivera said that he brings a different aspect, to this wide receiving room. And these aren't a bunch of short guys. He said this isn't the fun bunch. And I mean, they average a 4.3 total speed across all wide receiver. I think that's a total of all wide receivers in regards to like their 40 speeds. I mean, you got some fast guys here. And you also have some bigger guys as well. And I feel like the Dotson pick as well in closure here is they feel good about Curtis Samuel in 2022. I think that they do. I feel like there's no disparity with it. You traded back and got a hell of a guy to put over Terry McLaurin. You use Curtis Samuel as that kind of that gadget guy. You don't know how Diami Brown's going to come around. Cam Sims being that big body wide receiver. Hopefully he gets a hell of a lot more receptions that he did last year and targets as well. But let's close this out with Curtis Samuel. He says that he has a lot of goals for the 2022 season. He said he finally feels like himself again. Obviously, all Sidelines Washington listeners know we made videos about it. We've talked about it till we're blue in the face. Very tumultuous inaugural campaign for Curtis Samuel, former Carolina Panther here for the Washington Commanders last year, football team last year. You feel like he's the forgotten guy in this room, Doug. And what would his numbers have to look like next year or this upcoming season for this investment to be worthwhile to you? Obviously, the people in Ashburn are still very high on him. And for me, Curtis Samuel is why this trade back was never hard for them. So what does a successful season look like in 2022 for Curtis Samuel?
Well, he's got to play half the season, right? I mean, at least half. It's funny because my brother Stuart is always telling me that the man's hurt all the time. I went back and looked. I mean, he did have some injury like the last year, I think, maybe with Carolina, but didn't feel like it was actually a thing. So I don't know if I buy into that. I don't know if they rushed him back too soon. I don't know if they didn't do their proper due diligence with the medicals last year. I mean, I think Steve Smith at one point was on 106.7 talking about he had been hurt and they knew he was hurt. I don't know. They didn't even have a training staff, right? Because they got rolled up by the DEA last year. So, I mean, how they were able to even clear him medically at the first go round, I don't even know. A good year for him is being productive. I don't even know how to quantify it, right?
Because he's a playmaker. Obviously, it's touches for him. It's not receptions. I mean, he can get the ball in his hands as a runner. It's a multifaceted guy. We're talking about
before everybody got excited about Debo.
Yep.
Right. So
I feel like that's a good way to put it. And
if he can get 8 touchdowns, if he can get, I mean, if 250 carries was the number for Gibson. And I'm thinking about receptions for Terry, because really that's what you're thinking about, right? Is somewhere in the middle. You're thinking of maybe a pumped up version of McKissick. So if he got 40 carries and McKissick got 40 carries and I think it was something like 65 receptions, I think you're looking at something similar. Maybe bumped up 70 receptions for Samuels, I think is a really good number, right?
Yeah, totally. And of course it's all about availability, and it's almost because, obviously we're all talking about Curtis Samuel because the way everything played out last year, and you want him to have a better season this upcoming year. He says he's got personal goals for himself. I'm happy for the guy. I hope it works out for him because
I got personal goals for myself this year too.
And the more productive he is, the better this Commander's offense is. But the reality of the situation is we don't know how he's going to be utilized. I mean, the Atlanta game, I mean, almost every catch he had was a first down. I mean, this guy was moving the chains. He's got phenomenal speed. He's a great athletic profile, but at the end of the day, we don't know how Scott Turner in this offense is going to utilize him long term. So for me,
they'll use him a lot like they did DeAndre. Remember when people got all excited about DeAndre Carter last year? That's how they're going to use him. They're going to use him,
and that's kind of how I feel as well. I feel like
except more. Right?
Yeah, if it's a DeAndre Carter season on steroids, I feel like that's a good season for Curtis Samuel. Honestly, for me, it's not even about the numbers. It's just about availability, I feel like if we have him for majority of the season, I feel like that's a win for Curtis Samuel. Because, with a guy like him, just him being on the field changes everything for that defense. It really does. So, for me, I know you said, what number did you say specifically? You said, I can't remember.
Like 70 receptions, 25 carries, something like that, I think feels right.
That's fair.
Whatever you saw McKissick do last year, which I think was 40 and 70 or 40 and 65, which is a big number for a running back. I think it's something similar to that.
If he plays 15 games for the Commanders this year, I will be happy. And I feel like having that guy on the field is going to be big time for this offense now that you had a guy like Dotson as well. I think they're feeling good about this wide receiver room. You saw Scott Turner with Julie. I mean, he's sitting there, fawning, talking about all the weapons.
He nor Carson have ever had a collection of weapons like this.
Ever. And I can't even argue with you with the Carson instance. And Turner, even though I definitely have my thoughts about his game plan sometimes, has certainly had some great game plans as well in very shitty situations with very inadequate quarterback play and really only one legitimate receiving threat. I mean, you saw how much this red zone offense died down as well when Logan Thomas went down last year. So
that's a fact.
As always, Doug, man, it's always great talking to you, man. Please tell the Sidelines Washington listeners where they can find you. If they aren't following you already, man, it's a crime if they don't.
It's we're the Big Douglas Show on all social media platforms, including Twitch now. And we have live shows Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We switched to live shows, Parker, because I was too lazy to do the editing.
I feel you there. YouTube's kicking my ass.
And enjoy it. Monday, Super Mondays. Who knows what's going on? Wednesdays we're doing fantasy footballs. And all season long or off season long on Fridays, we're doing Fridays are for the fans. So if you're interested in coming on with us and hit me up and jump on a Friday show. And I hope we get a good response for that because I'm dying to talking to fans and see what they think about the season.
Hey, Doug, you never acted like you're anybody. You are as advertised. You say you're not a film guy, but ball, and it's always fun having you come on the show and chop it up, man. Like you said, follow the Big Douglas Show Monday, Wednesday, Friday, people. It's a phenomenal product. Former players coming on. Great football insight. As always, you can find us on all social media by clicking the link tree in the description, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, pretty much everything but TikTok, guys. You can find us over at Twitter as well. Getting a nice little bump on there recently. Sidelines wise, you guys can email me sidelines_WFT if you want to join one of the fastest rising sport networks in the country, sitting 124,000 strong. Just got our new Instagram page running, a lot of activity over there as well. Check out the website. Got some great articles about Terry McLaurin's contract negotiations and a bunch of other stuff. Doug, like I said, man, it's awesome having you on the show. But to close out us here on Sidelines Washington with this episode is our interview with an all-time Redskin linebacker, London Fletcher, an impromptu one, might I add, just strolled into the content creator's tent, sat down, put his arm around me. And it was awesome to be able to talk about linebacker, his broadcasting gig, and more. See you guys next week. Enjoy. Joining me now is an all-time Redskins great. Also joined now by another all-time Redskins great. Some Fletcher on Doug Williams action right here live on the Sidelines Washington podcast. Like I said, the man needs no introduction. Now part of the broadcast booth here for the Washington Commanders, linebacker London Fletcher. Mr. Fletcher, obviously an honor to meet you, sir. Kind of a transition period for a lot of people with the Commanders name, but you're now transitioning to the broadcasting booth. So, sure there's some training and some stuff that goes along with that, but I'm sure you're very excited.
I am very excited. Looking forward to getting started with Julian Bram calling games in the broadcast booth. It'll be something different. I was in studio doing games. doing the in studio stuff, pregame shows before since I retired, but now this will be totally different.
Different beast, man.
Yes, but I'm looking forward to it.
100% different beast. And, I feel like you kind of set the standard for linebackers here in the nation's capital. Almost too high sometimes. So when a guy like Jamin Davis comes in, has some struggles his rookie season, obviously you can say that, maybe they moved to the outside, maybe it wasn't naturally a middle linebacker. What do you say about a guy like Jamin Davis? How do you grade his year one from a pretty much Hall of Fame linebacker standpoint as far as I'm concerned?
Well, it's tough. I'll say this for a rookie linebacker to come in and all of a sudden be thrust with being able to call a defense and something that I don't think he did when he was at Kentucky. Is still line up, get yourself lined up, get everybody lined up. That's a tall task for a rookie to do. I think he'll be better this year if they choose to try to put him back at middle linebacker, having that experience that he gained a year ago. I feel like, just watching him on film, he has a tremendous amount of physical abilities. It's just a matter of him, learning the middle linebacker position. But, coach, he's in great hands with Coach Rivera and also Coach Del Rio.
100%. I've always been a little bit of a pessimist about the pick, but you heard here from London Fletcher himself. The man has a very high ceiling, sees some great things out of him in 2021. And obviously, Mr. Fletcher, I expect a lot of great things out of you in the broadcasting booth. Like I said, you set the standard for linebackers and defense here in the nation's capital, and thank you for your time.
I appreciate it.